I never thought I'd be standing in a Beverly Hills lawyer's office at 62, fighting for what should rightfully be mine. My name is Margaret Chen, and for 30 years I built a tech empire alongside my late husband Richard. When he passed, 6 months ago, I discovered that love, loyalty, and decades of partnership mean nothing when greed takes over. Mrs. Chen, I'm afraid the will is quite explicit, Attorney Morrison said, adjusting his expensive glasses. The mahogany office overlooked Rodeo Drive, where tourists snapped photos of luxury they'd never afford. California sunshine streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, but all I felt was cold dread. Our son Michael sat across from me, his Armani suit pristine, his expression harder than the marble floor beneath our feet. At 35, he'd grown into someone I barely recognized, entitled, calculating, nothing like the boy who once helped me plant roses in our Malibu garden. The estate, valued at $92 million, goes entirely to Michael Chen. Morrison continued. Mrs. Chen receives only the Pasadena house and a modest monthly allowance. I stared at Michael, searching for any flicker of the child who used to curl up beside me during Pacific storms. How could you do this? I worked 18-hour days building Chen Technologies. I sacrificed everything for our family. Michael's laugh was bitter. You sacrificed everything for your ambition, Mom. Dad saw that. He knew I deserved his legacy, not someone who put business before family. The accusation hit like a Santa Ana wind, unexpected and devastating. Yes, I'd worked relentlessly, but it was for us, for our future. Every late night, every missed dinner was an investment in our family's security. Your father and I were partners in everything, I whispered, my voice barely audible above the Beverly Hills traffic below. Were you? Michael leaned forward, his eyes cold as morning fog rolling off the Pacific. Because he told me about your affair with David Kumar, your business partner. He knew about those late-night strategy sessions at the Chateau Marmont. The words hung in the air like smog over downtown LA. My affair with David had ended 20 years ago, a brief mistake during a difficult period in my marriage. Richard and I had worked through it, or so I thought. Don't expect a dime of Daddy's. Money beyond what's legally required, Michael said, standing. His shadow fell across me like the darkness that settles over Malibu canyons at dusk. As he walked away, his designer shoes clicking against marble, I realized this wasn't just about money. This was about justice, truth, and proving that a woman's contributions to a marriage and business partnership can't be erased by one man's final vindictive act. The fight of my life was just beginning, and I'd need every ounce of strength California had taught me during 3 decades of earthquakes, wildfires, and tech industry battles. Hey, I want to know where you're watching this from. Also, if you're enjoying this story, please hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Trust me, you won't believe what happens next in Margaret's fight for justice. That night, in my Pasadena home, the only property Michael couldn't strip from me, I sat in Richard's study, surrounded by memories and legal documents. The Spanish-style house we'd bought in 1995 felt massive and empty. Jasmine from our garden drifted through open windows, a bittersweet reminder of happier times. I pulled out boxes of old business records, photographs, and correspondence. If Michael thought he could rewrite history, he was mistaken. The evidence of my contributions to Chen Technologies was scattered throughout our home office like pieces of a complex puzzle. My phone buzzed. Sarah Martinez, my former assistant, and now a successful attorney, had been calling since news of the will broke. Margaret, I've been researching California inheritance law, Sarah said when I finally answered. Community property rules are on your side. Everything acquired during marriage should be split 50-50, regardless of whose name appears on the title. Hope flickered in my chest like the first spark of sunrise over the San Gabriel Mountains. But Richard's will explicitly contradicts that, which is exactly why we need to challenge it. I found something interesting. Your husband made significant changes to his estate planning just 3 months before his death. That's highly unusual for someone with his meticulous nature. I remembered those final months. Richard had been secretive, taking meetings I wasn't invited to, speaking in hushed tones with Michael. At the time, I'd attributed it to his declining health and desire to protect me from stress. There's more, Sarah continued. I've been talking to former Chen Technologies employees. They remember your contributions differently than the will suggests. Maria Rodriguez from accounting kept detailed records of your work hours, project leadership, and client relationships. She's willing to testify. The next morning, I drove through Los Angeles traffic to meet Maria at a downtown cafe. The city sprawled endlessly in every direction, a concrete testament to dreams both realized and crushed. Maria, now in her 50s with silver-streaked hair, embraced me like the daughter I never had. Mrs. Chen, what they're doing is criminal, Maria said over café con leche. You were the heart of that company. While Mr. Chen handled finances and strategy, you managed operations, client relationships, and innovation. The patents alone that you developed should make you a millionaire. Michael claims I was absent, focused only on business at the expense of family. Maria's expression hardened. That boy grew up spoiled in your Malibu mansion while you built an empire. You attended every school play, every soccer game, even when you were negotiating million-dollar contracts on your phone from the bleachers. She pulled out a thick folder. I kept copies of everything. Your project timelines, client testimonials, even photos from company events where you clearly led presentations. This proves your integral role in building Chen Technologies from a startup to a $92 million corporation. As we spoke, I noticed a familiar figure at a corner table, David Kumar, my former business partner and, 2 decades ago, the man who'd nearly destroyed my marriage. He approached, hesitantly, his hair now completely gray, his once confident demeanor replaced by something resembling shame. Margaret, I heard about Richard's will. I need to tell you something that might help your case. David's revelation changed everything. We moved to a quieter corner of the cafe, away from curious ears and the bustling energy of downtown LA's business district. 3 months before Richard died, he came to my office, David began, his voice barely above a whisper. He wanted me to confirm details about our affair from 20 years ago. He seemed different, paranoid, almost obsessive. I felt my stomach drop, like I was experiencing one of California's infamous earthquakes. What did you tell him? The truth, that it lasted only 6 months, that it meant nothing, that you ended it to save your marriage. But Richard wasn't listening to reason. He kept asking about business meetings, whether we'd stolen ideas or profits from him. Maria leaned forward, her legal mind already working. Did he seem mentally coherent? Was he taking any medications that might have affected his judgment? David nodded grimly. That's what worried me. He mentioned new medications for his heart condition, complained about confusion and memory problems. When I suggested he talk to you directly, he became agitated, said he couldn't trust anyone anymore. The pieces were falling into place like dominoes in an earthquake aftershock. Richard's final months had been marked by increasing isolation, paranoia, and medical issues that might have clouded his judgment. The man who'd once trusted me with everything had been manipulated by our own son. There's something else, David continued. Michael visited me twice during those final months. He asked detailed questions about our past relationship, wanted documentation of meetings, timelines. He was building a case against you, Margaret. The betrayal cut deeper than any business loss I'd ever experienced. My own child had orchestrated this systematic destruction of my reputation and financial security. But why? What had I done to deserve such calculated cruelty? That afternoon, I drove up the Pacific Coast Highway to our old Malibu house. Now, Michael's property. The ocean stretched endlessly westward, waves crashing against cliffs that had stood for millennia. I needed answers, And despite everything, part of me still believed the boy I'd raised retained some spark of conscience. Michael's Tesla was parked in the circular driveway, its pristine surface reflecting the mansion's Mediterranean architecture. The house looked exactly the same: manicured gardens, infinity pool overlooking the Pacific, walls of glass that captured California's eternal golden light. He answered the door wearing casual clothes, as if inheriting $92 million. Was just another lazy Sunday. Mother, you shouldn't be here. The property legally belongs to me now. I need to understand why, I said, stepping past him into the foyer where family photos still lined marble tables. Images of happier times. Michael's graduation from Stanford, family vacations to Napa Valley, Christmas mornings filled with laughter and love. Why? His voice rose with surprising anger. Because you abandoned us for your precious company. Because David Kumar mattered more than Dad's feelings. Because you never once considered how your choices affected our family. That's not true, Michael. I worked hard to provide for us, to build something lasting. You worked hard to prove you were better than Dad. Every success was yours. Every failure was his fault. He spent 20 years feeling like a failure in his own company. The accusation hung between us like morning marine layer, obscuring truth and distorting perception. Had my drive for success truly overshadowed Richard's contributions? Had my determination to prove myself as a businesswoman made my husband feel inadequate? Your father was proud of what we built together. Michael's laugh was hollow. Was he? Or did he just hide his pain well? The night he changed his will, he called me crying, said he felt invisible in his own life. The confrontation with Michael left me questioning everything I thought I knew about my marriage and my role as a mother. I drove back to Pasadena through LA's endless sprawl, past strip malls and palm trees, mansions and homeless encampments. California's stark contrasts reflected my own internal conflict. That evening, I called my sister Jennifer in San Francisco. We'd grown apart over the years, our relationship strained by success and geographic distance, but she'd always been my moral compass during difficult times. Maggie, I've been waiting for you to call, Jennifer said. I heard about Richard's will through the family grapevine. It's unconscionable. Michael says I was a terrible wife and mother. Maybe he's right. Maybe I was so focused on proving myself in business that I neglected what really mattered. Stop. Jennifer's voice carried the authority of our childhood when she'd protected me from playground bullies and family criticism. I watched you balance motherhood and career for 30 years. You attended every school event, every birthday party, every family gathering. Richard was proud of you, not threatened by you. Then why the will? Why did he leave me with almost nothing? Jennifer was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was gentle but firm. Because he was sick, scared, and manipulated by a son who resented sharing his inheritance. This isn't about your worth as a wife or mother. It's about greed and psychological manipulation. The next morning brought unexpected hope. Sarah Martinez called with news that could change everything. Margaret, I've been investigating Richard's medical records with a private investigator. His heart medication included powerful drugs that can cause confusion, paranoia, and impaired judgment. More importantly, I found something about the lawyer who drafted his final will. I drove to Sarah's Beverly Hills office, navigating morning traffic that moved like molasses through the city's arteries. Her law firm occupied the 20th floor of a gleaming tower, with views stretching from downtown LA to the Pacific Ocean. Attorney Morrison, who handled Richard's estate planning, has a questionable reputation, Sarah explained, spreading documents across her glass conference table. He's faced 3 ethics complaints in the past 5 years for manipulating elderly clients. One case involved a similar scenario, turning adult children against surviving spouses. The revelation hit like sunshine breaking through marine layer. You're saying Morrison may have influenced Richard's decision? I'm saying he specialized in exploiting vulnerable, wealthy elderly clients. Look at this. Sarah handed me a legal document. Morrison met with Michael 6 times before ever meeting with Richard. That's highly unusual for estate planning. She pulled out another folder. I've also been investigating your business contributions to Chen Technologies. The patent office has records showing you as the primary inventor on 12 major innovations that generated 60% of the company's revenue. Your name was mysteriously removed from later filings. My hands shook as I reviewed the evidence. 20 years of systematic erasure, my contributions minimized and eventually eliminated from official records. While I'd focused on running the company, someone had been methodically stealing credit for my work. Michael had access to all company documents as Richard's heir apparent, I realized. He could have altered records, removed my name from patents and client files. Sarah nodded, grimly. Corporate fraud, elder abuse, and conspiracy to defraud. We're not just challenging a will anymore, Margaret. We're exposing a criminal enterprise. As afternoon shadows lengthened across Beverly Hills, I felt something I hadn't experienced since Richard's death. Genuine hope for justice. But with hope came fear. Michael wasn't just fighting for inheritance. He was protecting himself from criminal charges. How far will he go to cover this up? I asked. Sarah's expression was grave. Desperate people do desperate things. We need to be careful. Margaret, this isn't just about money anymore. The investigation gained momentum like wildfire spreading through California canyons. Sarah's legal team worked around the clock, uncovering evidence that painted Michael not as a grieving son, but as an architect of elaborate fraud spanning decades. I spent sleepless nights in Richard's study, surrounded by boxes of documents and memories. The weight of betrayal was crushing. Not just Richard's final rejection, but the systematic theft of my life's work by the child I'd raised and loved unconditionally. My phone buzzed at midnight. Sarah's voice was tense, urgent. Margaret, you need to leave your house immediately. My investigator discovered Michael hired a private security firm. They've been watching your property for 3 days. Fear coursed through me like adrenaline. What kind of security firm? The kind that specializes in intimidation and evidence destruction. Pack essential documents and come to my office. We have security here and I've called the police. I grabbed the most crucial files and drove through empty Pasadena streets, past Spanish-style homes and manicured lawns that looked deceptively peaceful under streetlights. Every shadow seemed threatening, every car potentially following me. Sarah met me in her office lobby, flanked by 2 security guards. Her usually composed demeanor showed cracks of genuine concern. This is bigger than we initially thought, Margaret. Michael isn't acting alone. She led me to a secure conference room where her investigator, James Wu, had spread dozens of documents across multiple tables. Mrs. Chen, your son has been systematically looting Chen Technologies for years. He's diverted funds to offshore accounts, sold patents to shell companies he controls, and falsified business records. The scope of betrayal was staggering. Michael had essentially stolen my own company while I focused on operations and client relationships. Every innovation I developed, every client I'd cultivated, every strategic decision I'd made had been exploited for his personal enrichment. The total theft exceeds $15 million, James continued. But here's the crucial part. He needed Richard out of the picture to complete his plan. Your husband was starting to ask questions about discrepancies in financial reports. You're saying Michael may have contributed to Richard's death? Sarah handed me a medical report. Not directly, but he certainly didn't help. Michael convinced your husband to switch doctors 3 months before he died. The new physician prescribed a medication cocktail that was contraindicated for Richard's condition. I felt physically ill. The room spun like I was experiencing vertigo. On a clifftop overlooking the Pacific, my son, my beloved child, had orchestrated not just financial fraud, but potentially medical negligence that hastened his father's death. Why? I whispered. Why would he do this to us? James pulled out psychological evaluations and financial records. Narcissistic personality disorder, gambling debts exceeding $2 million, and cocaine addiction. Michael needed money fast, and your family's wealth was the most accessible source. The pieces formed a horrific picture. Michael's expensive lifestyle, frequent trips to Las Vegas, association with questionable business partners, all red flags I'd ignored because I wanted to believe my son was successful and happy. We have enough evidence for criminal charges, Sarah said. But Michael knows we're closing in. He's liquidating assets, preparing to flee the country. We have maybe 48 hours before he disappears with whatever money he can access. I stood at the conference room window, looking out at Los Angeles's glittering sprawl. Somewhere in that maze of lights and dreams, my son was planning his escape from justice. The boy I'd taught to ride bicycles in Griffith Park, who'd helped me bake cookies for school fundraisers, who'd once promised to take care of me in my old age. What do we do now? Sarah's smile was grim but determined. We set a trap, and we make sure Michael faces the consequences of his choices. If you're enjoying Margaret's fight for justice, please subscribe to the channel and hit that like button. The next chapter reveals our plan to catch Michael, and trust me, you won't see this twist coming. Sarah's plan was audacious and dangerous. We would use Michael's greed against him, offering him one final opportunity to steal, an opportunity that would provide irrefutable evidence of his crimes while federal agents recorded everything. We're going to tell Michael that you've discovered a hidden cache of Richard's cryptocurrency investments worth $10 million, Sarah explained as dawn broke over Los Angeles. You'll claim you want to share it with him as a gesture of reconciliation. I felt sick at the deception, even knowing it was necessary. He'll never believe I'd willingly give him anything. That's why the story has to be believable. You're grieving, feeling guilty about your affair with David, questioning whether Michael was right about your priorities. You want to make amends before it's too late. James Wu had set up surveillance equipment in my Pasadena house, hidden cameras and microphones that would capture every word and action. FBI agents posed as landscapers and utility workers in the Ye neighborhood, ready to move when Michael incriminated himself. I called Michael from Sarah's office, my voice carefully crafted to sound broken and defeated. Son, I need to see you. I found something your father hid from both of us. Mother, I'm busy preparing for a business trip. Whatever you found, it's legally mine anyway. It's cryptocurrency worth over $10 million. Richard apparently invested in Bitcoin years ago and never told us. The digital wallet is hidden in his study, and I don't know how to access it alone. The line went silent. I could almost hear Michael's mind calculating, weighing the risks against the potential reward. Greed won, as Sarah had predicted. I'll be there in an hour. The next 60 minutes felt like waiting for an earthquake, knowing the ground would shift, but not knowing exactly when or how violently. I drove home through familiar Pasadena streets, past the Rose Bowl and Caltech campus, landmarks of a life that was about to change forever. Michael arrived in his Tesla, looking polished and confident despite the dark circles under his eyes that suggested sleepless nights and chemical stimulants. He hugged me with manufactured warmth, playing the role of concerned son while FBI agents watched from hidden positions. Show me what you found, he said, following me into Richard's study. I pulled out a laptop and external hard drive, props provided by James Wu that looked convincingly like cryptocurrency storage devices. Your father was more tech-savvy than we realized. He created multiple digital wallets, but they're password protected. Michael's eyes lit up with familiar avarice. Do you have any ideas about the passwords? I've tried family birthdays, anniversaries, business milestones. Nothing works, but I thought maybe together we could figure it out. For the next hour, Michael became increasingly agitated as fake password attempts failed. His mask of filial concern slipped, revealing the calculating predator beneath. He suggested we hire hackers, contact cryptocurrency experts, even bribe blockchain companies for access. This is our money, Mother. We can't let it disappear into digital limbo. Our money? I asked carefully. I thought you said I deserved nothing from your father's estate. Michael's expression shifted, becoming cold and calculating. That was before I knew about this cryptocurrency. Obviously, we need to work together to access these funds. Even though you believe I was a terrible wife who betrayed your father? Look, Mom, maybe I was harsh before. We're family. We should share this windfall. The conversation continued. For another 30 minutes, with Michael progressively revealing his true nature, he suggested ways to hide the cryptocurrency from estate taxes, talked about moving funds to offshore accounts, and eventually admitted to already transferring other assets to avoid legal scrutiny. I've been protecting our family's wealth from government thieves and gold-digging lawyers, he said with growing confidence. Dad would have wanted us to keep everything we built. Everything we built? I thought you said I contributed nothing to Chen Technologies. Michael laughed, a sound devoid of warmth or recognition of irony. You contributed plenty, Mom. Your patents alone are worth millions. I've been licensing them through subsidiary companies for years. The admission hung in the air like smog over downtown LA. Michael had just confessed to patent theft, tax evasion, and fraud, while federal agents recorded every word. Those patents had my name removed from them, I said quietly. Business necessities. Your name on the patents would have complicated the licensing deals. The trap was closing, but Michael's revelations were more devastating than even Sarah had anticipated. My son continued talking, his guard completely down, believing he was manipulating a grieving widow rather than confessing to federal agents. The offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands hold about $8 million, he said, pulling out his phone to show me banking apps. I've been moving money there for 3 years, preparing for Dad's inevitable death. Heart disease was going to kill him anyway. I just made sure I'd be ready. The casual callousness of his words made me physically ill. This wasn't just greed or addiction. This was sociopathic indifference to human suffering, including his own father's death and his mother's financial ruin. Michael, are you saying you knew your father was going to die? Come on, Mom. His heart was failing. The doctors gave him 2 years at most. I simply positioned our family to benefit from the inevitable transition of wealth. By stealing from the company? By removing my name from patents I developed? Michael's smile was predatory. By protecting our assets from estate taxes and your potential remarriage. You're only 62, still attractive. What if you'd married someone who wanted half of Dad's wealth? The FBI had heard enough. James Wu's voice crackled through my hidden earpiece. We're moving in. Keep him talking for 30 more seconds. I need to ask you something directly, I said, looking into eyes that had once gazed at me with childhood love and trust. Did you deliberately give your father medical advice that worsened his condition? Michael's expression shifted, becoming wary. What kind of question is that? The kind a mother asks when she discovers her son may have committed murder. The word hung between us like a death sentence. Michael's face went through a series of transformations: surprise, calculation, and finally, cold fury. You're wearing a wire, he said flatly. This whole cryptocurrency story was a setup. Before I could respond, federal agents burst through the study doors, weapons drawn, voices commanding Michael to show his hands. The scene played out like a crime drama. Except this was my real life, my real son being arrested for real crimes against our family. Michael Chen, you're under arrest for fraud, embezzlement, elder abuse, and conspiracy, Agent Rodriguez announced while handcuffing my child. You have the right to remain silent. Michael's eyes met mine as they led him away. In that moment, I saw not the calculating criminal who'd stolen our family's wealth, but the frightened boy who used to run to my bed during thunderstorms. The duality was heartbreaking: love and betrayal, protection and prosecution, mother and victim. Sarah arrived as the FBI processed the crime scene. We got everything, Margaret, his confessions, the evidence of offshore accounts, admission of patent theft. This will not only restore your inheritance, but likely result in significant prison time for Michael. I sat in Richard's chair, surrounded by law enforcement officers cataloging evidence of my son's crimes. The study where we'd planned family vacations and celebrated business successes had become the scene of ultimate betrayal and justice. How long will he be in prison? With the federal charges and the amount of money involved, probably 15 to 20 years. 20 years. Michael would be in his 50s when released, his life and our family's legacy forever changed by choices driven by greed and addiction. The boy I'd raised, loved, and sacrificed for would spend the next 2 decades in federal prison. As the sun set over Pasadena, painting the San Gabriel Mountains in shades of gold and crimson, I realized this wasn't an ending, but a beginning. Justice had been served, but the real work, rebuilding my life, my business, and my faith in family, was just starting. The phone rang. David Kumar's name appeared on the caller ID. "Margaret, I heard about Michael's arrest on the news. I'm so sorry. How are you holding up?" For the first time in months, I felt something approaching peace. "I'm surviving, David, and tomorrow I'm going to start living again." 6 months later, I stood in the renovated offices of Chen Technologies, now officially Chen Kumar Innovation Group. The partnership with David that had once nearly destroyed my marriage had become the foundation for a new chapter of both business, success, and personal redemption. The legal battles were finally resolved. Michael had pleaded guilty to 12 federal charges and received an 18-year sentence. The offshore accounts were frozen and their contents returned to the estate. More importantly, all patents were restored to my name, and Chen Technologies was officially recognized as a joint marital asset, giving me rightful ownership of the company Richard and I had built together. "Mrs. Chen, the Forbes reporter is here for your interview," my new assistant announced. The story of my fight for justice had captured national attention, inspiring other women to challenge unfair inheritance decisions and exposing the vulnerabilities of elderly Americans to financial manipulation. The reporter, Maria Santos, was a sharp woman in her 40s who'd covered numerous corporate fraud cases. "Your story has resonated with women across America," she said, as we sat in my office overlooking downtown Pasadena. "What advice would you give to others facing similar situations?" "Never accept injustice as inevitable," I replied, looking out at the San Gabriel Mountains that had witnessed my family's rise and fall and rise again. I spent months questioning whether I deserved what happened, whether Michael was right about my failures as a wife and mother. But betrayal says more about the betrayer than the betrayed. The interview continued for an hour, covering everything from corporate governance reforms to elder abuse prevention. But the question that mattered most came at the end. "Do you have any regrets about prosecuting your own son?" I paused, considering not just the question, but the journey that had brought me to this moment. "I regret that Michael made choices that destroyed our family. I regret that addiction and greed transformed my loving child into someone I didn't recognize. But I don't regret pursuing justice. Accountability isn't the opposite of love. Sometimes it's the highest expression of love." After the interview, I drove to the federal correctional facility where Michael was serving his sentence. We'd had no contact since his arrest, but I decided it was time to face the final conversation between mother and son. Michael looked older, thinner, the arrogance replaced by something resembling humility. We sat across from each other in the visitor's room, separated by scratched plexiglass and years of broken trust. "I'm sorry, Mom," he said, and for the first time in months, his voice carried genuine emotion rather than calculated manipulation. "I know you are, Michael. I'm sorry too. Sorry I didn't see your addiction. Sorry I didn't get you help when it might have made a difference. I stole from you. I destroyed Dad's trust. I tried to leave you with nothing. Yes, you did all of those things, but you're still my son and I still love you. We talked for 30 minutes about his recovery program, his plans for rebuilding his life after prison, and the possibility of redemption. It wasn't forgiveness. That would take years, if it came at all. But it was a beginning. Driving home, through Los Angeles traffic, I reflected on the past year's journey from betrayal to justice to reconciliation. The city sprawled endlessly in every direction, millions of dreams and stories intersecting in the California sunshine. My story was just one among many, but it was mine, and I'd fought to reclaim it. My phone buzzed with a text from Jennifer. "Proud of you, sis. Dinner this weekend?" Another text from Sarah. "The foundation paperwork is ready. The Margaret Chen Institute for Elder Rights will be operational by next month." And finally, one from David. "Board meeting tomorrow at 9. The new AI project is revolutionary. You're going to love it." At 63, I was starting over, in business, in family relationships, in life itself. The California dream had been tested by betrayal and fraud, but it had survived. Like the state itself, I'd weathered earthquakes and fires and emerged stronger. The sun was setting over the Pacific as I pulled into my Pasadena driveway. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and opportunities. But tonight, for the first time, in a year, I was at peace with who I was and what I'd accomplished. Justice had been served. Truth had prevailed. And Margaret Chen was ready for whatever came next. Thanks so much for following Margaret's incredible journey. If this story moved you, please subscribe and hit that like button. Share it with someone who needs to hear that. It's never too late to fight for justice. What other stories would you like to see? Let me know in the comments below.